all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world. She walks into mine.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
There's no crying in baseball.
You talking to me?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You can't handle the truth!
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hello and welcome again to the Old School Movie Club podcast. I am Shawn Patterson, joined once again by my friend Kevin Levine. Kevin, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great, man.
On a brand new mic.
I'm on a brand new mic, and I've got a lot more free time now because I'm not working anymore.
Yeah. Today was your last day at that place, right?
What?
Today was your last day there, right?
It was.
Well, I hope
this gives me more time to focus on
more movies,
school and movies and the podcast and everything. So
yeah,
hopefully we'll be turning out an even better podcast pretty soon.
Hopefully, we're trying to get there. We're trying to make it better every time.
I mean, it's a work in progress. We're just getting our feet off the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyways, though, speaking of getting a work in progress, getting our feet off the ground. This week we watched Rebel Without a Cause, and again, because we have like these little conversations before we do the podcast, and I'm like, I just try to get like the vibe from Kevin, like what he's feeling about it. And once again, he loves this movie, or at least like that's what you were saying to me. You love this movie.
Oh yeah, dude, this is easily in my top 10 or 15 movies of all time now.
And I'm more like a lukewarm. Like I don't like it. I don't dislike it as much as I do like Ferris Bueller or something like that. I still like the movie. It's just there was a lot of things that like, well, that was weird, you know, and just very specific points like that. And I really do like the message that this movie tries to get across. But anyways, I want you to kind of share your thoughts on the movie too, like why you like it so much, because you said this is like one of your top movies like ever now.
Right, and it's like I said to you earlier today. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, it's completely fictionalized and it's dramatized.
Way over dramatized.
Yeah, and easily. It's rather theatrical at times, which is good. Because there is a sense of realism in it, and the fact that a lot of these teenagers, these kids, are dealing with real emotional issues, and they're dealing with conflicts with their parents, conflicts within their own social groups, whether they're trying to fit into a group or if they're a loner. But I mean, it's an over dramatization at the same time, but it's about bullying, depression, anxiety, mental illness, how it all affects teenagers. Granted, a lot of that stuff affects teenagers differently now because it is 62 years later.
Yeah. And
the 1950s were very different from the 2010s.
Oh, yeah.
But I absolutely love this. I love the way that these mental illnesses and these issues that these teenagers were dealing with kind of played out in this film.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really like the message it sends too, like what it tries to get across, and I like that, like that's the part of the movie that I do like, and, you know, going to the movie not knowing anything going in, I kind of got that I got what they were trying to send me, like, in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Like, just meeting James Dean's character, it was kind of like, oh, this is gonna be about, like, someone who he just doesn't really connect well with his parents. They just don't get it with him, and he has all these, like, mental problems and issues. And then when you meet the other characters, they all have their own kind of, like, little mental issue or problem, like something's wrong with their parents, and I already forgot his name. The
main character?
No, John. I was trying to remember his, like, pet name.
Oh, wait, which character?
John. So the The one that does like his he doesn't really have parents.
Oh, Plato.
Plato, yes. I knew it was some, Greek thing. Anyways,
right.
Like, with Plato, it's like really, really pronounced. Like he doesn't have like his parents or his support system, and then like he thinks of James Dean's character as a father, like actually a father to him, like his father role.
Maybe not a father, but definitely at least a big brother kind of role.
Yeah, but he even asks him, like, will you be, I would like you to be my father, like, which,
well,
like,
that's true.
Yeah, and it's just like another one of like there's a lot of like really, really awkward scenes in this movie, like, I don't think they were as awkward back then, like you were saying how things have changed in this time, but like, there's a few scenes that just like were really, really awkward to me, and one of my major gripes of the movie, and honestly, I do really, really like the movie. It's just I'm not like up over the moon about it. Like I'm not gonna go sing praises and give out awards to it or anything like that. But it was a good movie. It had a good message. But one of my major gripes with it was, the main, like the leading lady. I can't.
Natalie Wood.
Yeah. So her character actually I get that it's over dramatized and stuff like that. I just wanted to see a little bit more like grief over her dead boyfriend. Just a little bit. I just wanted to see like, oh, I'm sad he's gone. Not like 15 minutes, like she has a little bit like when she goes home. But once she hears that, Jamie calls, she's like, oh,
but the thing is, she didn't care
anymore ever. What was that?
She didn't care.
I know that's my only gripe with it, because even if like he actually just died, like he's not around anymore, and I just wanted to see a little bit more like kind of attachment to that, even if they weren't like a real thing, And that's like,
maybe, but at the same time, for that part of the movie until his death, he was kind of portrayed as a villain.
Yeah, I get.
So he was supposed to be portrayed as a villain, and in the way that he died, you're just supposed to be kind of happy for it, I guess.
Yeah, I again, like I said, I do like this movie. It's just like those little tiny little things, like just a little bit, show me a little bit of your like remorse and stuff, like why he did that and stuff. Because even if you didn't actually like him, you still like, he's a person, And
well, these were all emotionally disturbed, delinquent children.
Yeah,
what if they didn't have those feelings?
Yeah, and when we were talking about that on the phone or texting back and forth about this, I kind of thought about it more. It's like maybe they're just like each character is a caricature of like a different like emotion kind of, or different like mental health issue,
Right.
And whereas the leading the female lead, she only thought, like you said, you were saying to me earlier, she only thought about herself. She didn't really care about anything else. She just wanted someone, to like her.
She was desperate for affection.
Yeah. And I get that, and maybe that's like why she just has like no real attachment to anything. Another like little tiny gripe I have is like, and I get it, it's the 1950s, and he's got this pride. He's got to do this for his pride. But then like the actual line where he says, They were gonna call me chicken. How could I ever face those kids again? I actually laughed. I literally laughed at that line. When he's trying to explain to his dad why he went off and did this, I'm like, okay.
See, I tapped into more of the emotional side with that line, because the issue that James Dean's character was dealing with was what he thinks about masculinity. Because you could see with his parents, his mother was the dominant parent in the household.
Yeah, and that's like a running theme. Like
his dad was scared of his mom.
Yeah, that's like he just wanted his dad to finally like stand up for himself.
Right. So he was afraid of being called a chicken because maybe he thought, he
didn't want to be like his dad.
Yeah, he thought he was being like his dad, and he didn't want to be that.
Yeah, and again, like I said earlier, going through some of this like conversation with you in the texting, I've kind of changed some of my points on this movie. I still there's still some things that I have gripes with and stuff, like a lot of the acting is very, very, and it's supposed to be over dramatized and stuff, but it's very, very like cringy in some points, especially from the gang, like the gang members.
Okay, but that gang was all just a bunch of moronic high school kids that were just like, bullies to be
we
bullies.
Gotta have a knife fight now. Oh, you know what we're gonna have to do? We're gonna have to, drive off this cliff now. It's just like little things like that. But I don't like, in the grand scope of things. I just smacked my mic. In the grand scope of things, I did really, really like this movie, and I kind of said my like whole spiel about what I didn't like about the movie.
Yeah.
But again, it has a great message. I just personally didn't like the delivery as much as you did in that message. So what did you think about because it is a very theatrical kind of style. There's a lot of and like very, very overblown reactions.
You're tearing me apart.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah,
I have the bullets like in my hand. I was like, that's that's a very, very emotional scene, but I almost laughed again at that. I was like, wow, that was amazing.
Dude, that's all James Dean. He was a phenomenal actor. This isn't the first thing I've seen him in. I've also seen him in a film called Giant. But James Dean, unfortunately, he was only 24 when he died in a car accident.
Yeah. Well, okay, I have a question.
We're 25. We're already older than James Dean ever got to be.
Yeah, I have a question for you though. What age was he when he was in this movie? Do you know that?
He was 24. This movie came out after he died.
Oh, it did? Okay. So
yeah. So similar situation with like Heath Ledger when he did The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing, and this has nothing to do with the movie, and everything else was like, this is just a very, very small little gripe. I cannot believe that James Dean is a high schooler. Like he looked like he was in mid-20s. Like when the start of the movie, when he's like laying on the floor and stuff, like, oh, he's just like a drunk or whatever. And when they said he was in high school, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Well, it's also like in the 50s compared to now, they didn't have a lot of the makeup and anti-aging technology or whatever it is that we use now to make people look younger than they actually are. And
again, that's just a very small thing again.
Also, I could believe a high school kid being drunk, especially in the 50s.
No. Not the drunk part. Just his, like, overall demeanor and look. I just couldn't buy him as, like, a high schooler. But I understand the limits of what they had, and they probably didn't have that many, like, there's probably no way to get actors that young for, like, leading roles back then.
Right.
And like you said, there's not a lot of, makeup and all that stuff. And
it's not completely impossible, though, because Natalie Wood, when this movie came out, she was only 17.
Okay. Well, see, I believed her a lot more. It just seemed like James Wood was a 24-year-old in the movie.
James Dean.
Or James Wood. James Dean was a 24-year-old in the movie.
You're shipping them right now.
Yeah. They got married. They're having kids now. They're living in that giant mansion.
Posthumously.
Yeah. But that only took me out of the movie for a little bit. After the first 10 minutes, I'd say once they got out of the police station, I kind of forgot about that. So another good thing on the movie's part, it initially took me out of it, but then I bought into it. But yeah, that's just another little snip I had. So you said you like the acting and you think James Dean like did a really, really good job. What do you think of the acting in general? Because like I said, it's very, very theatrical and over the top. So what do you think about everyone's?
I thought it was all great. I mean, it was captivating. It was relevant to the times. They did a good job of portraying what I typically think of as a 1950s kind of bully or gang of bullies. And Sal Mineo, the guy who played Plato. Yeah. I want to say his performance was adorable. It was innocent, but that was very much because the character of Plato was innocent until the final scene.
See, I had a different thought about Plato the entire movie. I thought that kid was a creep, like a big creep, and he's supposed to be like the sympathetic character. But when they start off the movie, it's like he killed these 2 puppies with his gun.
Yeah. And
then the guy was like, "Oh, you should probably get some help."
Well,
so it kind of like.
Well, and you can tell from so a lot of his background is the fact that he didn't have his parents anymore. Yeah. He was a bit of a loner or a loser at school. He had no friends. So it's kind of that situation of, it's the quiet ones who snap. Yeah, exactly. And again, he was very much a bit sociopathic. Yeah, again, part of the message of the movie. This loner that doesn't really have any support system at home. He was just looking for some kind of support, and he was a very, very weird character for me. And I think it was actually a credit to the actor. Like, he made it like almost like a haunting kind of like, I really didn't know where that character was heading. I knew it was gonna head somewhere bad, especially towards the end of the movie. I could see it like going down the path. But I didn't know exactly like what his, end goal was, or if he had an end goal, which he didn't. He didn't really have an end goal. He just wanted to be a part of a family. Yeah, he wanted someone to accept him. But unless it was all part of a plot to try to get people to accept them and then do something with them. I don't know. So you could very easily see this movie like. This is a very, very stage performance theater movie. Like, if you went and saw this in a theater, you wouldn't think of anything of it, but the way that's, like, acted, and I don't know if it's just, that's how the times were, and we saw Casablanca, which wasn't 1950s, it was 1942, but it wasn't like that same super theatrical over the top acting. And I'm curious to see if it's just a thing of the times, like in the 1950 area, if they all had like this theatrical kind of style, or if it was just that movie and a choice that they made for that movie. Because it seemed like you could very, very easily see the same exact performances like on stage. Like if you were to go to a stage play of this is like what you would see. You know what I'm saying? It would translate very easily to a stage. Yes. Yeah. And I kind of agree with what you're saying about 1950s movies. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of 1950s movies. Like the first one that I can think of that comes to mind is Singin' in the Rain. And when I compare Singin' in the Rain to this, Singin' in the Rain is very much theatrical as well, but the performances aren't as over the top. So I think it's a little bit of the time, but also probably a little bit of the director's style too. Yeah. And again, not a bad style. If you don't like theater, it's probably gonna be a bad style for you. I'm just gonna say it. If you've never been to a theater and you don't know, I would say give it a shot. But if you don't like theater, then this is a very theater movie. Yeah, and it's very much about the characters. Very, very much so. Anyways, so give me your wrap up thoughts about this movie. Well, it's easily a 5 out of 5 for me. This is one of the best acting performances I've ever seen in a film. James Dean particularly. Great script, great message. I believe it accurately portrays how a lot of teenagers at that time, at least, not nowadays, but in the 50s kind of dealt with those issues, and could be possibly adapted nowadays to be more culturally relevant to today's times. But
I feel like if this movie came out nowadays, it'd be a very, very, very big deal. Like if a movie like this came out nowadays, like with the kind of themes, not necessarily the same exact style, but the themes of this movie and the kind of message that this movie tries to get across, I feel like it would be a very, very big deal, especially now what we know about depression and mental illness, and still what we don't know about it, you know?
Right, and I think if this was adapted for a movie set in today's times, it would be a bit darker.
It would be. It'd be a lot
darker because Rebel Without a Cause, although it deals with a lot of heavy issues, feels very lighthearted at the same time.
Yes. And I feel like they walk that line really, really actually well when they try to explain these kind of, you know, feelings that these teenagers are having. And, you know, mental health and mental illness is a big deal nowadays. Like, I don't know, I don't have a time machine, so I can't go back to see what the landscape was in 1950 and if this was like a big deal back then when it came out about the mental health stuff. But it definitely would be now. Like, I think it would have a lot more weight to it now than it would back in the 1950s. Just everything that, like...
It would, and now, putting out a film about this in today's times would be a lot more accessible as well.
Yes.
A lot more people would see it now.
Yes.
But I also need to say that this movie made me appreciate La La Land even more than I already did, which...
You said there was a lot of references to the movie,
like,
right?
La La Land was already my favorite movie ever, and this one just made me love La La Land even more because there's a lot of Rebel Without a Cause references in La La Land. And I didn't understand them because I had never seen Rebel Without a Cause. And now I have seen it, and so whenever I go back and watch La La Land again sometime soon, I'm just going to love it even more.
Yeah, and I think that's like another point about this podcast that we're doing. And it's probably my favorite thing when I'm going back and watching these movies, and I finally see these iconic scenes that people reference in pop culture constantly, you know?
Yeah, and just seeing how some of these older classic films inspire new films.
Exactly. And you can see the inspiration clearly. Like, as much as I bagged on Ferris Bueller's Day Off, there's actually a Domino's commercial running right now that has the Stranger Things, the guy from Stranger Things, you know, doing the whole run back to his house. And I honestly didn't even know that was from Ferris Bueller. And when that scene popped on, I'm like, oh, I get this now. I understand why this is parodied on Family Guy and all that stuff. I understand.
Yeah, and I know I said it last week when we talked about Ferris Bueller, but that movie also has references in Deadpool and Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah.
Yep. And I think that's that's my favorite thing about this podcast we do so far is just figuring it that realization of all these pop culture, you know, all this pop culture and stuff that we did.
Also, it's just great seeing iconic scenes and hearing iconic quotes in context and really understanding what those quotes and scenes are about.
Exactly.
Because I had seen so many people quote the two lines from Rebel Without a Cause, "You're tearing me apart," and "I got the bullets." Those two lines are quoted in so many different places, in different movies, different YouTube channels.
The "You're tearing me apart" thing is everywhere.
Now I can understand the context.
Yeah. Okay, so, you know, getting back a little bit back on track, a little tangent there, but I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 5. And before I talk to you, Kevin, just texting,
I like that.
I was going to give it a 3.5 or 3 out of 5. And it wasn't because I hated the movie, it's just a lot of, but you pulled me over. You pulled me over to the light I finally saw it. Something clicked in my head. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess, if I'm thinking from this as just an over dramatization of these characters, not like, why is this girl like literally telling this guy that she just met this morning that she loves him when her boyfriend just died, racing this guy, like that. But I'm able to get over these little things because it's supposed to be an over dramatization, and it's supposed to be a little bit of a like, this is not, these things happen in our real life.
Yeah.
And we go through these things. Maybe not in this way, but these things do happen, and, especially with teenagers and kids and stuff, like, you don't know how that affects people like that. Like, it has a lot of different effects on people like that.
Films like this and many other films that offer social commentary or political commentary are so important. And so many of these films need to be rewatched by people nowadays, too.
Of course. And so, you pulled me over to the light, Kevin. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
And even though I pulled you over to the light, I still think you should rewatch it with this new perspective, because I think you might even like it more than that.
I might. And, that's one of the things about watching movies and doing this podcast is, with every single movie, like old classic movie I watch, and like all this extra knowledge I've gained of like, I really had never seen older movies before we started doing this podcast. And I really hadn't seen that many movies in general, like if you think about it, especially compared to like you. So seeing all these different directions and these different messages that these directors show throughout like their own interpretations of these movies, you kind of have to respect it, as an art form, because it is an art form, like very, very blatantly,
Yeah, very much so.
Anyways, Kevin, that is our discussion about Rebel Without a Cause. You gave it a 5 out of 5.
Yep.
I gave it a 4 out of 5. Still great. Still a great score. Just not a 5 out of 5. Anyways, so what are we watching next week? Because you've been waiting for this. You've been waiting for this for a few weeks, and you're gonna go get to see this movie in a giant theater.
Yeah. So for next week, we are watching and talking about Steven Spielberg's science fiction classic, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And I am going to get to see it in theater, either today or tomorrow. Who knows? Sometime this week. I've got a lot more free time now.
Yep.
And it is re-released in theaters this week, and it should be nationwide. So, Shawn, I encourage you, as well as all of our listeners, to try to go out and see this in theater.
I'm going to try to get the theater experience with this movie.
This is a movie that I feel needs a theater experience, because it's a big film.
Yeah. And Jaws was kind of like that too, and you got to see that in theater, and I didn't. And I think you got a little bit more appreciation for the movie Jaws seeing it in theater than I could, watching it at home. So I'm going to try to get out to the theaters and, watch it where this is like meant to be watched.
Yes.
What are your thoughts? Again, I think it's like a weekly thing now for me. I have no idea what this movie's about, what I'm going into, and I really hope it's not a scary movie, Kevin, because I do really, really bad with scary movies.
No, so this one's not a horror film. This one's just science
sci-fi
fiction. And
well, I like sci-fi.
I know it's about UFOs and aliens, but outside of that, I know nothing else.
See, I'm anticipating all the crazy, pop culture references that I'm going to finally get from like future sci-fi movies that had come out since then. And I'm like,
right.
Why
and
did they,
recently
because I'm sure
on some other podcasts that I listen to on YouTube, I've heard people talk about how Close Encounters is back in theaters this week, and I've heard references to potatoes.
Potatoes.
So of course, I guess there's something with potatoes in this film, and I don't get it right now, but I'll get it sometime this week.
You're finally going to be in on the inside joke, Kevin.
I want to know why potatoes are funny.
Why are potatoes funny, Kevin?
I don't know.
That is the question we'll be answering next week. Why potatoes are funny.
This will be a fun question to answer.
Yes. Anyways, next week, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Let us know what you want us to watch after this one. So not this upcoming week, but the week after that. And coming up soon, maybe, I'm not sure, we're going to be doing a live show video podcast. Since Kevin's going to be in town, we're going to try to go to this
hopefully
video and try
we're going to try to get it sometime in October when we're doing a month of horror films.
Yeah, and we may or may not try to see a movie together and set up a camera where I'm watching the horror movie, because like I said earlier, I do not do well with horror movies. I hate horror movies. I'm dreading October. I'm not looking forward to it at all. Anyways, Kevin, I think that's it for us. Actually, Kevin, where can they find you? I'm running. I need to slow down.
Yeah. You can find me on Letterboxd at Kev Watches Films, and on Twitter and Stardust at Kev Watched a Film.
And you can follow me at letterboxd.com/patpat, and you can follow the show on Twitter at OldSkoolMovieSK. Alright, Kevin, I think that's it for us.
Go watch movies.
Go watch movies.